Namashreshtam manumapi sachiputram atraswarupam rupam tasikrajam urupuram maturam gaustavatam radha kundam girivaram aho radhika madhavasam prapto yasya pradita kripaya shri gurum tam natosmi jayam vishnupad srila bhakti sunda govinda dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. We're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela chapter 4, which describes the inner reasons for the descent of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Inner reasons implies that there's outer reasons. Jai Srila Gurudev, Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhu. Inner reasons implies that there's outer reasons or external reasons. Confidential and open. So confidential reasons and the public external reasons. In Sanskrit, antaranga means intimate or internal, and bahiranga means external, public, superficial, outer, inner and outer. So chapter 3 of Adi Leela describes Mahaprabhu's outer reasons, and the primary outer reason is the establishment of the Yuga Dharma, which is the process, the spiritual process, the practice that is most effective, most appropriate and effective for the particular time. The time being the Yuga. What's a Yuga? Yuga is an epoch, a time era. So every time era has a spiritual process that is applicable, particularly applicable to that Yuga. And in Kali Yuga, it is Harinam Sankirtan, which is forming together as a group and chanting, singing, doing kirtan, Hari Kirtan, the names, singing the names of God. So Mahaprabhu's outer reason was to establish that practice here on earth. And he does that at the beginning of Kali Yuga, every Kali Yuga. But the inner reasons for Mahaprabhu's descent, they do not occur every Kali Yuga. Just because the Yuga Dharma of Harinam Sankirtan, the Kali Yuga Dharma of Harinam Sankirtan is being established does not necessarily mean that the inner reasons of Gauranga Mahaprabhu's appearance are concomitant with that, happening at the same time. They only happen every day of Brahma. And a day of Brahma is 4.32 billion years. That's the day. The night is the same length. So we say 9.64 billion years. So once in every day of Brahma, on the 28th Yuga cycle of Vaivashvata Manu, then Mahaprabhu appears, not only to establish the Yuga Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan, but also to fulfill his antaranga purpose, his inner purpose, confidential purpose. And that is what this chapter is about, Mahaprabhu's confidential purpose, which is threefold. It is to taste the happiness of Srimati Radharani when she is in her love for Krishna, in her relationship with Krishna. She feels great happiness. So Krishna wants to taste that. So he appears as Mahaprabhu. He appears with her mood to taste her happiness, to taste her love, number 2, and to have some appreciation, practical taste of appreciation of his own beauty. So those three, her happiness, love, and his own beauty, they constitute the inner antaranga reasons for Mahaprabhu's appearance. So that's what this chapter is about. And Yesterday, Kaviraj Goswami was explaining the point that with this happiness of the devotee, and the chief devotee being Srimati Radharani, saying with this happiness that the high devotees, i.e. those that follow, serve Srimati Radharani, coming in her line, with that happiness comes ecstatic symptoms. But if those ecstatic symptoms get in the way of their service, then they reject, they reject those symptoms, or they curse those symptoms. They see those symptoms as a disturbance, as something unwanted. Why? Because even though those symptoms are an expression of happiness, great happiness, that's why they're called ecstatic symptoms. They occur when someone is in a state of ecstasy, extreme happiness. Because of that, but because they are interfering with their functional service, with their service function, then they feel that it might affect the happiness of Krishna. If their ecstatic symptoms are interfering with their service efficiency, then they feel it's going to affect Krishna. And thus, they don't want the ecstatic symptoms. Which means what? It means that their service is all about, their life is completely about Krishna's happiness, and zero concern for their own happiness. So that was the point Kaviraj Goswami is making. And he says, this is the difference between lust and love, is that lust is intrinsically about one's own happiness. And although lust, the symptoms that are exhibited, or the set of symptoms that lust possesses may sometimes overlap superficially with those of love, the intrinsic motive is different. Lust being selfish, and love, pure love, being selfless. So they are in fact opposite in nature. So it's a weird paradox that they share superficial symptoms, but at a deeper level they are absolutely antithetical to one another. Lust and love. So Kaviraj Goswami is making these points. And we will continue from text. Yesterday we read 202. Sri Daruka did not relish his ecstatic feelings, for they caused his limbs to become stunned, and thus obstructed his service of fanning Lord Krishna. And
who was that?
Daruka, servant of Krishna, perhaps his charioteer.
Oh.
I think he was his charioteer, Daruka. Dwaka Leela. But it's quoted, so the purport says here, from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Text 203. Govinda Prakshanakshipi Baspa Pura Bivarshinam Ucher Anindad Anandam Aravinda Vilochana. The lotus-eyed Radharani powerfully condemned the ecstatic love that caused a flow of tears that hindered her sight of Govinda. That verse is also from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine Svasukarta Salokyadi Nakare Grahane. Furthermore, pure devotees never forsake the loving service of Krishna to aspire for their own personal pleasure through the 5 kinds of liberation. So, the 5 kinds of liberation are Samipya, Sarupya, Shashti, Salokya, and the impersonal one. Shashti as well. doesn't come to me right now. I think quality of form, opulence, abode. The Sanskrit is not given here. They're not fully listed here in this little purport, nor is the Sanskrit given. But there's 5 kinds of liberation. Sarupya, having the same form as the Lord, which will occur in the Vaikuntha planets, and there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets. Also, there are innumerable forms of the Lord. There's an interesting feature of the infinite world is that there are infinite forms. Advaitam, Achutam, Anadim, Ananta Rupam. It's from the Brahma Samhita. Advaitam, Achutam, Anadim, Ananta Rupam, Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha. Ananta Rupam. Rupam means a form, and Ananta means endless, unlimited, infinite. Ananta Rupam is describing the features of the Supreme, this verse. So, Ananta Rupam means endless, infinite forms. It's quite a fascinating concept. So the Lord has infinite forms, and the devotee, according to the devotee's nature, may assume a form that is similar or very identical with that of the Lord, a spiritual form. That is known as sarupya. Again, rupya meaning form. And salokya, loka is an abode or a planet. It's roughly translated as a planet. So you can live on the same planet as the Lord. Of course, that means that the place it's a utopian planet. It's heaven, or we can say more than heaven, the spiritual world. Samipya, which means living as the Lord's neighbor, or in the same neighborhood as the Lord, living in proximity to the Lord. We have Sarupya, Salokya, Samipya, and then Sharshti, which is possessing the same opulence. It's been translated as opulence of the Lord. Possessing the same opulence as Narayan. Personal opulence and resource opulence, wealth, property, etc. Of course, all of these occur in the abode, in the Vaikuntha planets. And Sayujya. Sayujya is the impersonal liberation, number 5, where one can merge into the existence. It says merge into the body of the Lord. So there may be subcategories of Sayujya. It says merge into the body of the Lord. I think it's generally understood that one merges into the Brahman, the all-permeating Brahman aspect of the Absolute. I think that's the general understanding of what Sayujya is. But it's also says merging into the body of the Lord. So perhaps the Lord's body is spirit, Satchidananda. So it's a spiritual body. So perhaps the Atma can merge into the body of the Lord. That is one option. It's listed there. But of those 5 kinds of liberation, Sayujya is categorically rejected by Vaishnavas, as it puts an end to devotional service. That's the prime reason. Mahaprabhu's tattva is achintya beda bed, simultaneously one yet different. So the interests are exactly the same. The quality is the same, but there is distinction. Thus there is service, there is relationship, there is love to be exchanged. There is no love to be exchanged if there's just one. So when there's 2, there is love to be exchanged. But when those 2 are 2 separate, then there is no love either. So if the 2 are one yet different, then it is that condition in which maximum love and devotional service between the Supreme and the individual soul can be experienced and expressed. But Sayujya Mukti puts an end to that. And then, so that's categorically rejected. But we see here that all of the other forms of liberation that are available in the Vaikuntha planets, they are also not actively sought after by devotees. They're not necessarily rejected because they all involve various degrees of devotional relationship with the Lord. So they're not rejected, but they're not actively sought after by, verse here says, Shuddha Bhakta. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine Sva Sukharta Salokyari Na Kari Grahani. Grahan, the word graha, Prabhupada has translated as acceptance, grahani. It also means to grab, to want to take something. So the devotees do not want to take, they don't want to chase after the 5 kinds of liberation. Because they do not aspire for their own personal pleasure through the 5 kinds of liberation. As we can imagine, having the same opulence of the Lord, as the Lord, living on the same planet, the same neighborhood, having the same amount of wealth, these would all engender great pleasure. It's a perfect life in all respects. But the devotee is not interested in their own pleasure. The high devotee. This, of course, we have to keep in mind that Kaviraj Goswami is presenting here the highest type of devotion to Krishna, the highest level of self-sacrifice that the jiva soul can perform in the interest of a loving relationship with the Supreme, with Krishna. So it's the creme de la creme of bhakti that's being presented here. Raghunath Das Goswami, this concept is mentioned in a bunch of places, but Raghunath Das Goswami mentions it in his Manashiksha. I think verse 4. Says that impersonal liberation. It says no, he's talking about bad association, asat sangha. He compares it to Vaishya to like some, we're going off on a little tangent because it's not about bad association. But this, in the same verse, Raghunath Das Goswami describes how a devotee vehemently rejects non-Vaishnav association. He says also the devotee rejects or does not also the devotee rejects impersonal liberation, and they also are indifferent towards Vaikuntha type liberation, which is referring to the 4 types of liberation accepting Sayuja that are available in Vaikuntha. I was going to express how in that verse Raghunath Das Goswami mentions that asat sangha is like a lurid encounter with a prostitute that will rob you of your wealth. So it may provide some short-term, low-class, back-alley thrill, but leaves you worse off all around. So he equates association, bad association, with like some encounter with a prostitute that leaves you broke and unsatisfied. There may be some initial thrill, so there may be some initial titillation from associating with people that aspire after money, status, sensual enjoyment that may provide some initial thrill, but in the end it leaves you broke spiritually bankrupt. So, but then in that same verse 4, talks about how is what devotees will reject. They also reject impersonal liberation. They're also indifferent to the liberation on offer in Vaikuntha, which is sought after by so many devotees of an order categorically beneath this pinnacle of bhakti, this premium category of bhakti that is being expressed here. Because this is all about Srimati Radharani and the love of the gopis, Mahaprabhu's inner reason. Srimati Radharani's bhav. Text 205, Madguna Shruti Matrena Mai Sarva Guhashaye Manogatir Avichena Yata Gangam Baso Gasombudho. Just as the celestial waters of the Ganges flow unobstructed into the ocean, so when my devotees simply hear of me, their minds come to me, who resides in the hearts of all. Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya Nirgunasya Hudahritam Ahaituk Yavya Vahita Ya Bhakti Purushottame. These are the characteristics of transcendental loving service to Purushottam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is causeless and it cannot be obstructed in any way. Ahoitaki means causeless, and apratihata or avyavahita means unobstructible. Salokya shashti sarupya samipyaikatvam apyuta diyamanam nagrinanti vina mat sevanam jana. My devotees do not accept salokya, shashti, swarupya, samipya, or oneness with me, even if I offer these liberations in preference to serving me. There we go, a direct statement regarding what we are just talking about. Purport: these 3 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam were spoken by Lord Krishna in the form of Kapila Dev. Canto 3. Canto 3, chapter 29, text 11 to 13. Matsevaya pratitam te salokyadi chatustayam neshanti sevaya purna kutonyat kalaviplutam. My devotees, having fulfilled their desires by serving me, do not accept the 4 kinds of salvation that are easily earned by such service. Why then should they accept any pleasures that are lost in the course of time? So in other words, if they're not even accepting liberation, how would they settle for material pleasures? What to speak of material pleasures? Kamaganda hina svabhavika gopi prema nirmala ujvala shuddha yena dagdahema. The natural love of the gopis is devoid of any trace of lust. It is faultless, bright and pure like molten gold. Krishnera sahaya guru bandava prayasi gopika hayena priya shishya sakidasi. The gopis are the helpers, teachers, friends, wives, dear disciples, confidants and serving maids of Lord Krishna. So, I'll comment later. Sahaya guru vashishya bhujisya bandavastriya satyam vadami te partha gopya kim me bhavantina. O Partha, I speak to you the truth. The gopis are my helpers, teachers, disciples, servants, friends, and consorts. I do not know what they are not to me. In other words, they are everything. Gopika janena krishnera manera vanchita prema seva paripate ishta samihita. The gopis know Krishna's desires, and they know how to render perfect loving service for his enjoyment. They perform their service expertly for the satisfaction of their beloved. Man mahatmyam mat saparyam mat shraddham man manogatam jananti gopika partha nanye jananti tatvata. O Partha, the gopis know my greatness, my loving service, respect for me, and my mentality. Others cannot really know these. Se gopigana madhye utamaradika rupe gune sobhagye prema sarvadika. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the foremost. She surpasses all in beauty, in good qualities, in good fortune, and above all, in love. Yata radha priya vishnos tasya kundam priyam tata sarva gopishu saivaika vishnur atyanta vallabha. Just as Radha is dear to Lord Krishna, so her bathing place, Radha Kund, is dear to him. She alone is his most beloved of all the gopis. Reminds us of the later verses of Upadeshamrita. Vaikunta Shanitovara Madhupuri Tatrapi Rasotsabad Brindaranyam Udarapani Ramana Tatrapi Govardhana Radha Kundam Girivaram Aho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya. No. Kuryadasya Virajato Giritatam Sevam Viviki Giritate Sevam Vivikin Naka Kuryadasya Virajato Giritate. Establishing Radha Kund, so her bathing place, Radha Kund. That's verse number 9 of Upadeshamrita. And then the verse number 10, Karmibhya paritohre pratyaya vyaktum yayar gyaninas tebhyo jnana vimukta bhakti parama premaikyanishtasthata. Establishing the supremacy of Srimati Radharani.
I think there is a recording of Guru Maharaj reciting that particular verse. Now that you recited that, remember?
I'd imagine there is.
Yeah.
216. Trilokye prithvi danya yatra brindavanam puri tatrapi gopikaha partha yatra radha bidha mama. O Partha, and all the three planetary systems, this earth is especially fortunate, for on earth is the town of Vrindavan, and there the gopis are especially glorious, because among them is my Srimati Radharani. Radha saha krida rasa vridhira karana arasaba gopigana rasopakarana. All the other gopis help increase the joy of Krishna's pastimes with Radharani. The gopis act as the instruments of their mutual enjoyment. Which means to say that the gopis, all the other gopis are facilitating the loving pastimes of Radha and Krishna, arranging for their meeting and arranging all of the circumstances and supporting their desires and needs in the relationship. I'll read the purport. It is said that the gopis are divided into 5 groups, namely the Shakis, Nitya Sakis, Prana Sakis, Priya Sakis, and Parama Preshta Sakis. All these fair-complexioned associates of Srimati Radharani, the Queen of Vrindavan Dham, are expert artists in evoking erotic sentiments in Krishna. The Parama Preshta Sakis are 8 in number, and in the ecstatic dealings of Krishna and Radha, they side sometimes with Krishna and at other times with Radharani, just to create a situation in which it appears that they favor one against the other. that makes the exchange of mellows more palatable. Sometimes what Srila Prabhupada is saying, it makes the exchange of mellows more palatable, which means it adds some zest, it adds some fire to it. There's some kind of competition, there's even a little bit of animosity. Sometimes they're siding with one, sometimes they're siding with the other. So it adds some zest, some fire. Prabhupada uses a little bit of a euphemism, perhaps, that makes it more palatable. Krishna Ravalabha Radha Krishna Pranadana Tanhavinu Sukha Hetu Nahe Gopigana. Radha is the beloved consort of Krishna, and she is the wealth of his life. Without her, the gopis cannot give him pleasure. So we'll finish there. Essentially, Sri Kaviraj Goswami is establishing the supremacy of Srimati Radharani. Because then of course, Krishna tasting, if she is the greatest devotee, then Krishna tasting, wanting to taste her bhav, her love, is it defines, it establishes Gauranga Mahaprabhu's supremacy. Because Gauranga Mahaprabhu is tasting Srimati Radharani's love. Gauranga Mahaprabhu is Krishna tasting her love. So right here, Kaviraj Goswami is establishing the premise for the supremacy of Gauranga Mahaprabhu by establishing the supremacy of Srimati Radharani. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Devotional Treasure Chest by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj. This is chapter 16, entitled The Line of Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. Yesterday, Param Gurudev gave something of a brief definition regarding the name, an explanation of the name Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. I mean, it's self-explanatory. Chaitanya Saraswat. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his teachings, the culture that he established, as conceived of, practiced, and represented by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. What does Param Gurudev say here? The Bhagavatam culture. So the substantial meaning, this is of the name, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, or Sri Chaitanya Saraswat. The substantial meaning is from Chaitanya to Saraswati. It is the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam. So what is the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam? It is all leading to Radha Dasyam. This is we're in consonance with the topic of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's all leading to Radha Dasyam. Although the name of Radharani is not mentioned, it is leading there. It is all pointing there. To the love, to the devotion of the gopis. And Radharani being the chief gopi. So that's the culture of the Bhagavatam. The Madhura Ras, as embodied by Srimati Radharani. So it is the culture of the Bhagavatam as viewed by Chaitanya Dev and his followers up to Saraswati, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Now, Param Gurudev is going to elaborate a little more widely on other connected themes or meanings. There is a class of Saraswat Brahmanas in the Maharashtra area of India who say they are Gauda Brahmanas or Saraswat Brahmanas. Saraswat means a particular group who are under Sri Chaitanya Dev. This may be another meaning. So it's connected, saying this may be another meaning. Again, this group of brahmanas, call themselves Saraswat brahmanas or Gauda brahmanas, are followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Additionally, in Manu Samhita it is mentioned, Saraswati drisadvatyor devanadyor yad antaram tam deva nirmitam desham brahmavartam prachaksate. The Aryan civilization came from up country. First it was between the two rivers, Saraswati and Drisadvati. Vyasadeva and other authorities all belonged to Bhadrakashram in that quarter. Bhadrakashram is just on the banks of the river Saraswati. Vyasadeva used to live there, and Narada Muni came to give dictation about the principles of Bhagavatam there at Bhadrakashram on the banks of the Saraswati. Vyasadeva also taught the principles of the Bhagavatam to Shukadeva at Bhadrakashram on the banks of the Saraswati. Ambarish Maharaj also lived in that area. It is mentioned that he used to live by the Saraswati river, which joins the Ganges near Bhadrakashram. It is mentioned in Bhagavatam that he performed hundreds of sacrifices on the two banks of the Saraswati river. These took place in very ancient times. At that time, the Himalayas were considered as the most recently formed mountains. Though the Himalayas were the highest mountains, they were also considered to be the youngest. Where the Himalayas rose, that area became very cold, and the people came down to inhabit the plains. Saraswati River is now gone, dried up for whatever, some geological event caused the river to dry up. And the populations that were living on the banks of that river then moved to other places. With the rising up of the Himalayas, the plains also rose up out of the sea, thus increasing the landmass of India. The seat of ancient civilization was there, but as it rose in height, the people came down to the warmer coastal regions. The original seat of Vedic or Aryan civilization was on that side, and gradually it spread itself towards the coast. It is from the banks of the Saraswati that the Vedic culture began. Gradually, it has been extended towards this side. East Bengal and this area by the Ganges is ancient, but many other areas have sprung up from the sea. In the south of India, some areas are also ancient. So the Saraswat Brahmanas are a particular group of Brahmanas who uphold the Vedic culture. They are supposed to have their residence now in the upper Himalayas, and they are gradually coming this side. Our temple is Chaitanya Saraswat, distinct from the Saraswat Brahmanas. So although Param Gurudev is initially saying that there are a group of Brahmanas in the Maharashtra area who call themselves Saraswat, as in are a group who are under Chaitanya Dev. He says this may be another meaning. But he says this may be another, it seems that he is qualifying that later by saying this may be another meaning, but another general meaning, not another way of interpreting the name Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. Because he says here, our temple is Chaitanya Saraswat, distinct from the Saraswat Brahmanas. So Chaitanya Saraswat is the line of Bhagavatam as enhanced by Sri Chaitanya Dev. Of all the acharyas, Chaitanya Dev preached about love divine. Clearly and in a developed scientific way, only Chaitanya Dev preached the fifth end of life, Bhagavad Prema. The end of life is to acquire love, affection and attraction for Godhead, for Krishna. Krishna is the Lord of love, and he is the innermost conception of Godhead. The highest conception of Godhead is Krishna. The jiva can have a relationship with him, the relationship of love, and that is the highest achievement for all souls, ever known to have come down to this world. Thus, Chaitanya Saraswat is exclusively Chaitanya Anuga Saraswat, Saraswat that belongs to the school of Chaitanya Dev. They are believers in Krishna consciousness and Chaitanya Dev's instructions. We'll finish there. Param Gurudev will continue to explain some other definitions related to the name Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. And then it seems it's nice to have this chapter included in the book. It has been printed somewhere before, perhaps in a Gaudiya Darshan. I've seen it before, but it's nice to have it in a book. Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. I'll sing it. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Jai Goshai Kori Charana Bandhan Jaha Hoite Vignana Sabista Pura Jai Goshai Kori Jai Goshai Andra Muni Tanra Das Kandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Jana me Mora Ehi Abhilas Ejai Koshai Chape Prache Koilobas Anande Bolo Hari Bacha Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pare Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Para Padma Koreyash Hari Nam Sankha Gore Narottam Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Sundar Radha Giridhari Ji ki jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Srila Guru Dev ki jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakha Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Vishnupad Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Samaveda Vaishnav Mandala ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan, Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Taigo Premanandi Hari Hari.